Good. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the next bit on our IPCP module videos of why you should join the next pathway next February, the 27th.
27th, yeah.
7th, 2023. Good. So we just want to talk a little bit about how Identity Compass and the artificial intelligence brings an integral capacity to coaching. And we're going to have Jay talk us through how standard or traditional coaching works in the left-hand quadrants mainly, and how Identity Compass brings a more holistic, whole and integral approach to working with the client and also for you as a coach. So we're going to have a quick look at a slide and then Jay and I will have a conversation. So here we go, get ready.
So this is the difference that makes the difference between subjectivity and objectivity. And it's massive in coaching because the whole field of coaching is basically grounded in the coach's and the client's subjectivity. So this is a game changer we're about to look at.
Here we go. Good.
So if we look at it, this is a map of the subjective or the inner experience and the objective or the outer experience of the individual, and as plural, as a collective, as part of a team, a group, a culture. Yeah. And so we're looking at the subjective and objective of the individual and the collective. If we look in the upper left quadrant, you'll see it's marked there in red. The inner experience of the coach counts for almost everything in conventional coaching. So that means that a coach not only has to be really well trained, but they've got to have gone through it themselves. And if they haven't gone through it themselves, they're going to find it really, really difficult to navigate contextually as well as subjectively the landscape they're taking the client through. Now, that plays out in stuff like high-performance sport where, hey, I'm not a Formula One driver, and nor do I need to be, in order to help another Formula One driver get their inner and outer game straight and right to be able to drive effectively to their potential. So currently coaching is grounded in the coach's map and the coachee's map. The coachee is bringing their subjectivity to, here's the problem and here's what I want. The coach then says, well, given what you want and given the problem that I'm hearing subjectively behind that problem is X. Oh, well, that kind of makes sense. And it all begins to land and they might work their way through it and it might be actually pretty useful. Good. In the lower left, second person perspective, then they are co-creating a shared map. Firstly, a shared map of current understanding, and secondly, a shared map of difference. And that's as far as conventional coaching can go.
So left-hand quadrants.
Left-hand quadrants.
Okay, so that's like traditional coaching, even developmental coaching, right? When you're just, what you're saying is the coach subjective experience and the client's subjective experience are interacting to the coaching session.
Right.
Good.
Holistically. And the big problem with that is that the coach doesn't have any context. So they're going to only rely on what the client's bringing to the process, which of course is going to be limited to what the client thinks is important. And this is the difference that makes the difference. We need to turn that subject into object. So we need something or someone or a process or a system to help us do that, to help us take a mind dump of the client and make it objective.
Good. So how does Identity Compass make this a more integrally informed coaching session in the right hands?
Well, it does that. It turns subject into object by asking a series of forced answer questions. It's not a nice test to do because it's forcing you into answering questions and then throwing up different questions based on what it's forcing you into answering. And so it's a forced answer test. So it feels like, well, neither of those are true, but it's taking you down a pathway where those small calculations start to play out in a big way in terms of your thinking patterns. It maps your thinking patterns in an objective, scientific, rational, logical way.
Okay, and so what is a factual map aspect and what is the functional map aspect that we could have in a coaching session with Identity Compass supporting us?
So the factual map is actually mapping out, given some scenarios in contexts. It uses the work context, but it's absolutely mapping cross-contextually. It's using the work context to map out thinking structures and place them out in a given way and shows how all of these thinking patterns interact with one another, and immediately helps you identify, using some AI technology, where the leverage point for the shift is for the client objectively. So that's the actual map.
Even if the client doesn't see that subjectively, right? They don't remember.
Oh, mostly they don't. Mostly the client will go, I disagree with that, but we can even show where their disagreement's coming from given the map. We can show how they mismatch, and that disagreement's actually part of a mismatch, and we can tell that that's on behalf of self-care based on what we're seeing in the map. So we can real time actually feed back the patterns as they're occurring in the coaching session to wake the client up so that they can grab a hold of this and start to do the work to grow themselves up, to clean up the stuff they need to clean up so that they can begin to show up.
So then we have a functional map that emerges out of the
context.
Yeah.
Which is context. So two aspects to this. One, the functional map is still subjective within the client's mind. How things play out for them and how they connect them to what's going on in their inner experience is like guesswork. Yeah. Sure. With the functional map, we can bring context in and we can look at work, we can look at personal, we can look at primary relationships, we can look at children, we can look at parents, we can look at community, we can look at all of those aspects and ask, how does this play out for you in this context, to start to get an understanding of what's cross-contextual and what's actually contextual. That means that they can shift between their thinking between contexts, which means they have more flexibility in the lower right component, or less flexibility, telling us how rigid their thinking patterns are.
Good. So let's summarize this with a couple of questions for you. So you've been coaching for a few years and you're an averagely good coach. Just give me a moment to relax my face. And so given that, what would you be happy to go on coaching people knowing Identity Compass is in the world and not have access to it? What difference has it made to you as an experienced coach, 15 years of coaching? Yeah. What difference can you see and benefit has Identity Compass brought to your actual corporate coaching?
Has shown me that I've been guessing up until I got a hold of the Identity Compass. It's shown me that my guessing is fairly accurate, yet, because I'm a human being, actually quite limited. And so would I coach without it now? Absolutely not. I mean, I'm literally flying with one arm and one eye. And so, it's to really get to the level I need to get to genuinely find the leverage point with the client, the Identity Compass just adds far too much value for me to guess any longer. And it's from their perspective, right? I've had a client go, I don't agree. And I've said to the client, it wasn't me who filled in your Identity Compass, it was you. So I'm not saying this, actually you are. You're disagreeing and taking a polar response against yourself. And then I said, let's look at the Identity Compass and see how that actually works out. And we found 6 key driver cognitive intentions that fit that pattern. And the moment the client saw it, the client literally went bright red and said, I feel more seen and more understood than any other conversation I've ever had with anybody to this point. I have not understood why I'm getting the responses I'm getting, and now I'm starting to understand why they happen the way they happen.
And what percentage would you say that's Jay Headley's capacity, and what percentage would you say that Identity Compass has informed in that session?
Well, part of my capacity is to take in and make meaning with the client out of the identity compass. So I'm going to go 60-40, but that 40% is the difference that makes the difference.
And what's the 40%?
That is the difference that makes the difference. The 40% is the identity compass. The 60% is all of the grounded learnings and understanding how the identity compass needs to be read and translated with the client's help.
Does a coach to coach the way you've just talked to need to be an excellent, outstanding, well-experienced coach to be able to use identity compass in that way?
They need to have that experience. They need to learn it. But what the identity compass will do is it will train them how to learn it in an accelerated way. So instead of it taking 5 years to become an extremely experienced, well-honed, well-rounded coach, having done the work on yourself, we'll cut that down to 2 or 3.
Sure. Anything else?
Come and look at the program. If you haven't had a chat with us, book a chat, get on the program. If you want to coach at the next level, this is the process and the tool that is going to take you there.
Good. Catch you next time.